Now, there's one woman's name who I haven't called yet, and I leave her for last. She's flown the furthest. I met her several years ago. Her story swept me up into tears. You will not find a more caring, compassionate, beautiful woman than this woman. She has an amazing story to share with you. I'm going to introduce you to our Success Ambassador from San Francisco. A round of applause to Christina Lagos. Ladies, follow me off the stage.
Let's give the ladies another hand. Thank you, Joy, and good evening, everyone. I have been on quite a journey to get me to this place where I am able to stand before you on the stage tonight. It all started the day I was born, Christmas Day, 1969. I was born to a young woman in the Philippines who had gotten pregnant out of wedlock to a married man. And in my deeply Catholic homeland, her actions were completely unacceptable. And so, in the traditional gift-giving spirit of the holidays, my mother gave me away to an orphanage. Luckily, I don't have any horror stories of my time there. I was adopted fairly quickly to a loving family who had previously adopted a son from the same orphanage, and the four of us lived a happy life together. My parents began traveling back and forth to the United States, laying down the groundwork for what would become a new adventure for us in a new land. When they finally told me and my brother that we were finally coming along, my eyes beamed, my heart swelled, and I just couldn't wait to live in a land where everything was air-conditioned. On our flight to California from the Philippines, I ran up and down the aisles of the airplane, nervously excited to tell everyone who would listen that I was going to America. We were going to live the American dream, but as soon as we arrived, that's when my nightmare began. It seems like even before the ink on my passport was dry, my uncle began molesting me. I was 7 years old. The abuse continued for almost 5 years, and I remained silent about it because he told me that if I was bad, I would be sent back to the Philippines. And I definitely did not want that to happen. I remember every traumatizing and terror-filled moment as if it was only yesterday. Moments when he would creep into the darkness of the room, or waking up in absolute terror to find him beside my bed, are moments that a young 7-year-old innocent girl should not have to endure. I was forced to grow up and forced to feel emotions that were too mature for my own understanding. I had a little cousin who was just a baby at the time. And every time my uncle was around, naturally, I would try to shield her from him because I simply did not want her to suffer through the same torture as me. So here I was, the protector and savior of my baby cousin, when I was barely more than a baby myself. To deal with the shame and confusion, I began drinking at the early age of 9. And my dependence on alcohol and drugs only grew from there. Then all of a sudden, the abuse from my uncle just came to an abrupt end. I didn't know why at the time, and I didn't care why. I just welcomed the change, and it wasn't until close to 30 years later that I found out why. I had decided to finally share my story with my cousin, that same cousin that I had spent my childhood protecting. Through our conversation, I realized that the reason that my uncle stopped molesting me wasn't because he was cured, or it wasn't because he got confronted. It was because he found a new victim, my cousin. When I was younger, I thought I was doing what was best for her by suffering in silence. But my silence couldn't have done anything worse. In my early 20s, I moved down to Los Angeles. This was going to be my fresh start. I got a job as a makeup artist at a popular department store, and I was so good at picking out would-be shoplifters that I actually became an undercover security agent. In this line of work, I interacted regularly with a few men from the police force, and every single one of them encouraged me to meet their colleague, Kevin. I hesitated at first. Nobody wants to be set up, right? But as fate would have it, when I was 24, we ended up randomly meeting anyways. After a whirlwind romance, and about 5 months after, we eloped to Vegas. Finally, I thought, I was protected and safe. Finally, I thought my monster could never hurt me again. Finally, I could live life without fear. Was this finally the beginning of my American dream? Unfortunately, it wasn't. 3 weeks after we got married, Kevin hit me for the first time. And the beatings only progressed from there. Close to a year into our marriage, Kevin beat me for 4 hours straight. I had been out with a friend and my phone had no cell signal. I didn't know at that time that that would result in a night of terror. I returned home to find Kevin with that green Tanqueray bottle in his hand. He asked me where I had been, and I tried to explain, but before I knew it, he lunged towards me and had his large, strong hand around my neck. He gripped my neck, and I couldn't breathe. I was like a rag doll that he moved from room to room as he screamed insults and accusations of me cheating or not answering his phone calls. He beat me, he choked me, and kicked me as I lay on the floor crying. Whenever I yelped at each blow or kick, he sternly told me to shut up or he'd hit me harder. So I learned. I learned to cry inwardly, a muffled, silent cry filled with agony and pain. Even as a makeup artist, the next day there was nothing I could do to hide the bruises. That morning after was the only time in our almost 1 year of marriage that he's ever acknowledged hitting me or he's ever apologized for the abuse. I went into work that day and my coworker Maura immediately pulled me into the back stock room and convinced me that I needed to leave him right then and there. She got me a cab to the airport and I bought a ticket to San Francisco. I left LA with nothing but the clothes on my back. When I landed, I found the battered women's shelter, where the staff and the counselors helped me cope with what was happening to me. That first night, I remember washing my hair with a small bar of soap that someone at the shelter had gifted me. And all I could think about was, did I do the right thing? Did I leave him, and am I okay? Because all I had was $100 in my pocket, and I had nothing else. And the fear and anxiety of him finding me was so great. It was at that shelter that the counselors helped me file a restraining order, and divorce proceedings started soon thereafter. I spent the next few years after my divorce bouncing around the country, trying to find peace and trying to find myself. With each new place came new friends, new party scenes, new drugs to try. When I was 29, I made my way back to LA. It was in LA where I made some friends that I had a really great time with. We would party the night away, take it from coast to coast, and soon internationally. It was then that an incident happened that was a little too close for comfort. I found out that my friends had been using my love of travel as a means and way to transport drugs. Now, I will wholeheartedly admit to being a drug user, but I was not, never, or has ever been a drug dealer. I confronted these friends when I found out about it and decided to disassociate myself from them by completely moving out of state. 6 years later, these same friends would come back to haunt me when they eventually found themselves in trouble. In order to lessen their consequences of their actions, they named me as an accomplice. They were involved in much more criminal activity than I could have ever imagined, and when it came down to it, I was looking at decades in prison, 25 years to life. Despite the fact that I had never been caught in a criminal act, I could have very easily spent the better half of my life behind bars. Luckily, I was offered a plea deal and had the 5 charges against me reduced down to just one: conspiracy to import MDMA or ecstasy. That federal drug charge still led to a 96-month sentence. That's 8 years in prison. So I had to say goodbye to my beautiful life that I had been building. I know this may sound strange, but I know that prison saved my life. It was in prison that I was finally able to get counseling to help with and deal with the issues from my past. I was finally able to open up and talk about the molestation and the domestic abuse. And I learned how to use healthy coping mechanisms. I also found out about Dress for Success. It was while I was in Dublin Federal Correctional Institution that they came and helped fellow inmates who were getting ready to be released. It was like I was watching an episode of Orange is the New Black before there was Orange is the New Black. Thanks to the drug treatment program and good behavior, I was released in just under 6 years. I entered a halfway house and got a referral to Dress for Success San Francisco. The women there greeted me with open arms, and it truly felt like I was being given a second chance. That day, I left the boutique with a beautiful olive green Armani suit, with shoes and jewelry to complete the look. But more than that suit, I got a glimpse of the Christina that I could be. I was filled with the confidence that I could accomplish anything if I made the most out of every opportunity. I landed the first job that I interviewed for with that suit. And that was just the beginning. I also started volunteering for Dress for Success and joined their professional women's group. Knowing that there was still more that I could do, I decided to go back to school full-time to become a chef. After graduating culinary school, I secured a full-time position as a catering assistant manager for Imagine Culinary, and I worked to keep some of the biggest execs in tech fueled and energized. It's not Farmville without me. My professional progress has allowed me the opportunity to also make a difference in the community with my Hope Project. Hope Project is a community project that Dress for Success helped me start almost 4 years ago. Time flies. I partner with local cosmetology schools to provide confidential haircuts and beauty services to victims of domestic violence who are temporarily housed in local battered women's shelters. I did not want another woman to feel any doubt while she was there, like I did when I was washing my hair with that 1 bar of soap. The compassionate touch heals all abuse. and I wanted to help them realize that. My life could have gone a completely different route. I was a victim of child abuse and a victim of domestic violence. I was a party girl, drug addict, and was a convicted felon. But those are not the labels that I choose to define my life. Today, I am a survivor. I am drug-free. I am drug-free and surrounded by family and friends that love me unconditionally. I am a wife, a mom, a homeowner, and a professional working in an industry that she loves. And the future is looking brighter and brighter every day. I am proof that this organization can change a person's life for the better. I am proof that transformation is real, and it's made real because of all of you that are here today. And I'm happy to say that I am finally living my American dream. Thank you to my wife, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you to Maura. Thank you to Renee and the staff at Dress for Success San Francisco. And finally, thank you to all of you. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining Christina Lego on the stage, Principal Consultant of Cook Ross Incorporated and former Dress for Success board member, Rosalind Taylor O'Neill.